Well, we have a quorum present at the meeting. We're going to go ahead and follow the agenda as a member. Peter is excused absence, will not be tonight, and Kyla has kindly volunteered to take that absence. Public comment, there's no public here. Select board, there's no select board here. So we'll go right into reviewing the capital plan. And remember that last time we had some issues with the spreadsheet, and those were resolved. They were tested on that laptop, and it worked. So we'll give it a try again. So Teresa, if you'll share your screen, go to that. I'm going to walk up so I can see the spreadsheet better, and everybody but Teresa is right. Oh, if you remember, the plan does not work. I think we were able to see that last time as it currently sits with the assumptions. So we'll go back to that place. And it's the what if tab, Teresa. And just to describe it, because I did make a change to how the plan looks, is the top part is the plan results. Based on the assumptions on the left-hand side, you'll see the planned values in column B. The what if values have not been entered because we don't have any what if scenarios defined yet. And if you, last time the first thing we started with was the capital reserve benchmark. What should that threshold be? That particular item had not really been set up to be interactive like the other variables had been. I've changed it so that that will be interactive and will be a little easier to manipulate that. I also added a line under that on line 23 because I thought it would be interesting. What percent of the capital of the current replacement cost is the benchmark that we're setting? And so you can see that we have a 4%. Currently plan is set at $262,000, which was last year's cost of a dump truck, pulled right out of the air, for lack of a better number. That's 4% of the items that would be funded by appropriation. Last time, and I thought this was where we would start, we had said that that benchmark should really be closer to where the threshold for bonding is. And we set it at 299,000. So Teresa, if you want to go ahead and put that into on line 20, where is it? 22, right? Yeah, in column C, right there, 299,000. You'll see that you say, okay. Okay, again, so we have that moves the benchmark up to 5% of the current replacement cost. And then it fills in the what if numbers. The yellow in the end capital reserve, ending capital reserve balance, you'll see that are places where we're not meeting the benchmark. So you can see for what's on the screen right now, you can see in years 2032 and 2034, we don't meet the benchmark. We didn't last time. If we raise the benchmark, we're certainly not going to meet it here. So one thing that I think Teresa will make it easier for you, we have the freeze and unfreeze button. If you click on that and then slide your slider over that way, we can see all the places where something is different. And you'll see that out to 2024, we have another year where that's beyond the plan in terms of not meeting that benchmark. And the place where the plan is really broken is in years 11 and 12, in that the ending capital reserve balance goes negative. So that isn't surprising given that we've raised the annual inflation rate for the replacement cost to 6%. So we kind of knew that against other assumptions that we had made from last year, increasing that to 6%, good things are not going to happen. Right. So that negative is really where the plan's broken, and that's where we need to fix that first. The benchmark is a number that will, once we get that fixed, we'll look at that benchmark and say, all right, if we are not covering it when we fix the plan, then we'll have to make a judgment as to what do we do about trying to get to that benchmark for the ending capital balance. And that benchmark, we have to be within 90% of it. So if we're more than 10% off of that benchmark, then it goes yellow. Does that make sense? So rather than trying to be that precise. Okay, so then with that assumption changed, we did set the 1 year smoothing at $155,000. That was raised from, I think, last year's appropriation was 144. And we had been going up, I think, $4,000 per year based in last year's plan. And we knew that wasn't going to work. We voted to raise it to 155. Now years 2 through 5 is what we really need to work on to see how to get that plan unbroken. So Kyla, this is your first time through this, so please ask away. Ask away if it's not making sense or it's not clear.
I understand.
Okay. Okay. All right. So there's a way to hunt and peck at this and just keep trying numbers. Obviously, I've done this at home a little bit, but there's also an intuitive way, is that we know year 5 sets the tone for everything afterwards. And our problem is everything afterwards, year 5, really. And what happens is that the way the secondary smoothing, so we smooth years 2, 3, and 4 manually year by year. Then we have what's called a secondary smoothing that's done by setting 2 variables. What percentage of smoothing do we want and for how many years? So right now, I don't remember let's see, what is that? It's set at 6% for 10 years. So starting in year 6, for 10 years, we would add 6% to the inflation rate as an inflation rate. So all that is based on where is year 5. You're looking at me like I lost you. All right. So if year 5 then sets the tone for everything for all of the smoothing after that, we have to get year 5 right to get anything after year 5 fixed in terms of enough appropriation. The other way would be to come back and don't spend so much.
We started at 5?
That's where I'm headed to. So if let's forget 2, 3, and 4 right at the moment. So let's go to year 5. And if we said, and I know the number that I played with is somewhere around 193,000.
Based on experience.
It's based on experience, but it's also looking, I know that inflation is going 6%. And right now we have inflation constant through the entire plan. Some years we have it different. But this year, because we have primary smoothing, secondary smoothing, this year it's all the same. So if you were to take, I think if you take 155 and increase it by 6% a year, in year 5, you'll get around 193. I can't remember whether that's the right number or not, but it's somewhere around there. But you can see we're no longer broken in the years 10, 11, or 12. It went, instead of the negative being there, it's the 11 and 12. 11, if you go up into the plan, it's minus 95,000. And now in the what if, we're 152,000 positive balance. All right, in row 12, if you can shake your pointer around those two numbers, Teresa. Yeah, right there. See that row? And year 11 is 152. Is the ending balance. So now we're positive. And if you go up above into the plan on row 12, I think it is, year 11 is a minus 95. So we're underfunded by 95,000. Now with that adjustment, we've got it up to plus 152. So it's directionally correct, big jump by that. Now, Teresa, just for fun, change the 193 to say 198. So you can see in year 11, that's got us up to 192 as an ending balance. All else, the world has to stay constant though. The world just has to be exactly as we assumed it would be. So you can see how that's impacting that number. And we're cutting down on some of the years where we are underfunded relative to our benchmark. So that's what's going on there. So that takes care of it. So Teresa, bring the slider back and let's see what's going on in the first 5 years. All right, so now we are looking good. We're meeting our new benchmark in all of the years all the way out till year 8. We slip a little under. So you understand what I'm saying there? If you take the row 17, we are now green all the way through, which means we're better than the plan. And we follow that all the way across to year 8. You can see we're yellow at 391, but we're not that far below our benchmark is growing each year by inflation as well. So our benchmark in that year is 450. So our 299 is going to 450. We're at 391. We're getting closer. Okay. So you understand how that's working?
Yes.
Okay. Because everything else, the only thing we've changed is the benchmark, and now we changed year 5 smoothing. And what that is, that's the appropriation we would be asking for that year. All right, so that's what we'd go to the town with. Okay, let's see, there's a zillion ways to do this. So now we can say, all right, all right. Let's try filling in. If we said that's the correct amount in year 5, how would we fill in? Well, what I want to do is find out at what rate of growth we need to have an even growth from. If we go from. $155 is the current value, and we're going to go 4 years beyond that, and it ends up at 198. What is the annual growth rate of that? That's 6.3%. So call it 6%.
Yeah.
Okay. So then if we take 155, that becomes 164. Are you going to do the percentages? Yeah, 164.
For year 2.
Year 2. So let's do them one at a time. We'll see how that impacts things. So you can see the first year of concerns where we didn't meet the benchmark, year 8, has grown some more.
Should I plug in?
No, it's already there, so. Year 2 would be 174. Now, we're green, so we've met the benchmark in that year, so it's Teresa, if you want to slide the slider to the right. Do a few more years, so we got 10, 11, and 12. Getting down, 11 is less than half of the benchmark, so I'd like to see that pop up a little bit. So next year would be 185. Isn't going to change much out there. Now it's really being driven by that year 5 number. You're only getting a little bit flowing through. So that now says, Teresa, slide all the way over. Make sure it's not broken any place. Or slide the other way. I'm sorry, I didn't say right or left. Okay. All right, so the only place we see issues are out past year 16. There's no smoothing going on out there. That's just pure calculation. And the way the spreadsheet is set up, the committee elected not to artificially decide what those appropriations would be out there if it went negative. So we have the ability, if the appropriation goes negative, we can bring it back up to last year's appropriation. But anyway, what's happening is it's a 20-year forward look. When you get to year 17, you only have 3 more years worth of data. So you don't need a lot of appropriation to fund the last 3 years. So it's kind of, you have to just weigh that. That was a request from the select board originally, that we look out 20 years. And so when you're in the first 5 years, you've got most of 20 years in the plan. When you get out to 15 years, you're collecting money based on a 20-year plan, but now you're spending money based on a 5-year plan. Or you had been collecting on a 20, so it gets out of balance. And that's one of the things I think particularly, and you can see it's broken year 18. We've got a negative balance. So we do have a way to fix that. The committee has not at this point decided to put that fix into play. At least it would make it look a little better. So now we've got a set of numbers that pretty much work through year 15. Right? We've got some low points in the benchmark that we should be careful of and maybe give some more thought to tonight. But before we do that, let's go to the analysis tab down there, right there. And hopefully that chart will finish. Come on, chart. Click on a cell right there and see if it'll, there we go. All right, thank you. So that is the debt service and the appropriation that's going on. So we want to focus on year, well, 1 through 15 is where the plan really is right now making sense. And you can see the green bar is the appropriation that we're asking for. That's how much tax money we're asking for from the town to support the plan. The red bar is the debt service that's already been committed and that we're paying off annually. You can see a couple places in year 6, the red bar gets bigger. In year 8, the red bar gets bigger. That's bonding for 2 fire trucks, I believe. Truck 2 and truck 1. So you can see how we've kind of, with paying off the debt, this whole process has come down. The amount of money that we're paying in our tax bills to support capital in Pownell is coming down. It does look like the green bar is growing over time. So this is something to be aware of. So let's go back to the appropriation tab. You want to, the arrows on the lower left, the left arrow. So keep on going. No, keep on going to the appropriation plan. Yep. And then slide to the left. In the upper left, there's a chart. And click on that. There. So this is the blue line is the appropriation through each of the years of the plan. The red line is the planned capital expenditure through each year of the plan. So you can see one of the tenets of our strategy is to make that appropriation line as flat as we can make it, knowing that expenditures are going to be like a roller coaster. Some cases, a really good roller coaster, up and down each year. All right, that's where the plan runs out of smoothing. Smoothing. We no longer are manipulating the plan for the benefit of the taxpayer. We're just letting it calculate. Now, we can fix that right now. We need 2 clicks to fix it. Let's just try that. Go back to the appropriations tab, plan appropriation plan. All right, and then go scroll to the right. It's okay. Keep going, and more. See where it says allow. Let's see. V. Yeah, allow negative appropriation. Change. So we want that to be a no. And V, make that 100%. Hit enter. Okay. So you'll see in column W where it's pink there, that 355 was 0 just before Teresa changed that number. So we were going, if we went negative, we would do 0% in the plan assumption. Now we're saying, all right, Mr. Plan, if this thing calculates to 0 or less, put 100% of last year's appropriation in, just to kind of something. When we can make that 50%, 150, whatever we want. All right, so now can you find that chart again? Scroll all the way back to the left. Click on that chart so we can say, all right. So now you can see what happens.
And that's a real.
I think it, and particularly for talking to the public, because everybody's eyes get drawn to that, oh my God, what's happening over there? Well, it's just the fact that you're running out of 20 years.
Stop entering data.
Right, exactly. That's the best way to say it. The data's not there anymore, so, all right. So now we've allowed the plan to, on its own, put the data back in. Right, so now we flatline it. It brings people back to, all right, let's talk about the important part. And that is the slope of that line. And is that slope too steep, too narrow? We've got some peaks and valleys in the expenditures. We got to shave the peaks and fill in the valleys to get there. So that's what's happening over the course of the plan. Does that make sense? Of course, I'm leading the witness. I'm leading the witness here. So, okay. But you can get it.
As you said, it's my first.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And Teresa, this may be your first through this part of it. Because we've only had this what if thing for like 2 years now. And we've never as a committee gotten this deep into using this. for me, I felt a lot better after we get to play with it.
Yeah.
So then right. And in years past, we didn't know necessarily when the plan was broken. And if it was broken, we weren't sure how to fix it. Because we couldn't see all the pieces like that against the plan. So let's go back to the what ifs. And now you've seen this and we can come back to this. And what I would ask, if you like that thing that we just changed, we can vote on it to make that part of our planning process and leave it.
That's a very reasonable thing to do,
Okay.
is just, say, okay. For assumption purposes, we could use the same number
Right,
the year before.
right. And it is in the plan, when that is used, because it can get used in other places, but it's usually typically at the far end. When it's used, those numbers are highlighted in a different color. So that you can visually look at it and say, all right, that's a different color. Why is it a different color? Oh, we're artificially putting in an appropriation to make it visually make sense, to add the data that we're missing. Right. 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 And yeah, and we can always find, if we use it and we say, all right, 100%, we know it's not going to be flatline like that. Let's make it 105%. Or let's make it 100 plus the inflation or whatever. I mean, so there's more ways to play with that to give it a more realistic look. So if we come back here. So how did that happen? We're broken again. Oh, that's 18. Oh, God. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So that, what we're going to have to do, that we can fix that. If we go back to, let's say the 198, just type the 198 in again. Yes. See if that fixed it. Yes. Okay, so because we are doing non what if adjustments in a different part of the plan, it didn't change the what if scenario. But so now we can come back and if we just slide a little bit, let's go to the left just to make sure. So one thing we'd say, all right, years 1 through 9, we're getting a balance. We meet the benchmark. Pretty strongly in some cases. So we'll slide just a little bit to the right. So now we've got 3 years, 10, 11, and 12, that we don't meet the benchmark. So now we need some of the infinite wisdom of the committee to decide, are we good enough? That's 10 years out. Or do we need to get a little closer? Yeah, that's another way to look at it. I mean, yeah, because we really have fixed that problem. And just so you know, Kyler, I mean, I think you were here for at least one of these. The past 2 years, the committee or at town meeting, there was $200,000 transferred from surplus to the capital reserve account. First year, we made the select board aware of, we had a light spot, I think we called it, somewhere's out in the first 10 years in the balance in the account. And it, wasn't where we wanted it to be, but we didn't really weren't sure we should do something. Well, they transferred $200,000 over. Then the next year, it came up again. I don't think we were as light as we thought in that prior year, but the select board says, we want you to have a good, strong balance in that capital reserve account. So we all agreed $200,000 would come over. And then we felt that after we went back and this before we had the what if ability, that we could reduce our appropriation each year. And that would help it make sense because it's taxpayer money. It needs to go to the taxpayer benefit. So we brought it over and we cut over the first 5 years, I think it was like $10,000 or $12,000 in appropriation. And the plan worked. What we didn't anticipate was inflation going higher and staying higher. And so, yeah. So, so we kind of got caught with that, you know, we took the appropriation down. In hindsight, we should not have done that. So now we're having to make that up plus some others. So with those 3 years, like in year 12, we're at 330. Our target is 568. So we're quite a bit under that. You see that? Right, so that's the amount that should be there. That's the 299 plus inflation each year, because everything's going to inflate by that 6%. So what we could do is the only thing we can change at this point is year 5, because everything now is going to be driven. So if you said, what if you made year 5, and do you want to pick a number? All right, let's go to 205. Hey, John. That gets us a lot closer, but I think it has it creates another problem. So Teresa, go back to, let's see, where do we want? Go to that. Let's go to that big chart again. Yes. Well, you can't really see it here. It's right there in year 2028 to 2029. You can see that the slope of the line jumps up. You know where, let's go to the analysis tab. I think we'll see it better there. Yes. If we can get down to that. Oh, that was in 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see in bars, it still doesn't show that much. So year 6 is where we would see the change. And so we've jumped that up by, we jump it up $7,000 there, and then that gets inflated 6%. Okay, let's go back to the appropriations tab. All right, now slide over to the right. I want to see the fiscal year appropriation. All right, so there's where it's going to hurt. All right, year 5 in column L to year 6 in column M, we have a $12,000 jump. So that's what that amounted to there. I read it right? Yeah. Or no, but go back one. It's 185 to 205. So we have a $20,000 jump from 4 to 5. And then we're starting to jump at like $12,000, $13,000 a year. And that's where the problem comes in terms of the taxpayers going to notice that. And have we kept it flat enough? You know, we're up at $8,000 or $9,000, 155 to 164, trying to keep that flat for the first 5 years. So that's where the brainstorming needs to come in. How close? You know, we're jumping by $20,000 in 1 year. Right now, in this next town meeting, we're asking for an $11,000 increase in the appropriation. That's probably the biggest we've had in 10 years of an increase in appropriation for the committee, because back 10 years ago, I can't remember what year it was, we had to have a big adjustment to kind of get onto the plane we're on now, where we could kind of smooth it out, because we were just, from prior years, the town had suppressed because they didn't have any tools to really look at what was the need going forward.
Did you put this entire spreadsheet together?
Yes.
How long did it take you to do it? When did you start?
2012.
2012.
It's, think of it as an evolution.
Yeah,
It started in 2012 and we started using it.
these standards, it was printed.
Yes. I mean, we had, the biggest thing then was from year to year, we reduced the maintenance of keeping this up and using it to project, because things, it used to be there was a spreadsheet before this. There were no formulas in it. Somebody just typed it up each year. So you had to move everything around.
Yeah.
Then we became formula driven, and started to try and use it to help say, all right, if inflation is X, what does that mean for all these other years? And we don't have to go, we can just type in the number, plug it in, and we have all the answers to that question. Over the years, we started asking harder questions, like what we see in the what if, because it became clear that when we get down to this and the answer isn't obvious, or we don't know that did we really do the right thing? I mean, you can see now there's an infinite number of possibilities to how you could do this plan. So the question was, what if we did it differently? And we didn't have the time to go back and reconstruct all that.
And this allows you to do that.
Yeah, so now we can reconstruct it and fast as Teresa can type in, but we yell at her.
Yeah.
So that has become helpful. Originally, you see a lot of stuff down below that we don't use, like in the lower parts of the spreadsheet. The select board had asked for a reserve account on every item. So it wasn't one big pot supporting everything. It was all a bunch of little pots supporting each thing. So we did that, ran the numbers, and it just ballooned the amount of money that the town was going to have to keep in these various accounts, into the, I think, like multi-million dollars, because everything was independent of anything else. We decided that's really not going to work. So we said, all right, it's got to be one big pot, and then we'll write the assumptions so that the pot is always full when it's needed to be full. So you'll see in some parts, and we never went back and reconstructed the spreadsheet because a lot of work for no benefit. So we're using the pieces there. So again, most every year there's some change that gets made to the plan and how it works based on the issues that confront the committee. And we say, how could we do this easier that would allow us to see more information so that we're making the higher level decision and the grunt work is all being done in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
If you go to, there's a change control tab in the blue right there. So we're down to line 481. So there's been 481 changes made to the plan since it started. Some of those are each year. You go out and you collect the starting information, go to the town office and find out, all right, what does the audit say the balance really was at the end of the year? And then we'll project next year's balance based on what we know is going to happen. What was the interest, what was the interest rate that the town's getting on the capital reserve account? We put that in. And then we collect all the information that you saw from the departments as to what changes to make. So all those changes are in here. So in theory, if it's been done right, you could go backwards from here all the way to line 1 and say, that's what the spreadsheet looked like 12 years ago. If you undid all those changes. Now, can't guarantee that I actually caught everything in there, but all the important, the idea was that any functionality that was changed, the committee would have to approve. Like that assumption we just said tonight would make more sense if we had it in there. If we vote to do that, we'll make it part of the plan. And that would mean I'll have to figure out what happens if you change that mid-flight like tonight. Do we have to remember to go tweak one of the assumptions to make it recalculate, to figure that out? But cosmetically, it was always thought that if I found a cosmetic error or something that would make it easier to read with a cosmetic change, I would just do that. For instance, go back to the asset schedule, all the way back to the left, those arrows over there. You can see the things that are highlighted in different color. The air packs in column A, all the labels are different color. Those are items that are occurring in this next year. So those are the items that we're focusing on. And each year that will change based on what item's coming up. If it's an item that's going into the bonding plan based on the threshold that we set for bonding, then it'll be a different color. And the idea was that these pages get so busy with numbers, it begins to get hard to read quickly over to the correct column to see, is this year's item or is it 2 years from now? Is it a bonding item or is it an appropriation item? So try to do cosmetic things like that. And once you get used to it, because next year when this comes in, whatever is up for the next plan, they'll be highlighted and these won't be. So just those things I just do when my old eyes can't keep up with the conversation in this meeting. I'll find a way to make it easier to read, but all the functional changes. So back to the what if. We made a change to year 5. It's a big change. It's going to affect the taxpayer and they'll notice. It makes the benchmark better. The question is, do we need to make that change? Do we need more of a change? Do we need less of a change? I mean, we still got 2 years where we're shorter than we'd like to be, but we're way ahead of where the plan would be without our changes. So that's probably the discussion we want to have.
Issues like this?
Yes. I mean, we always have concerns that, all right, you got to watch this. Yes. I mean, and that's where we want to catch it that far out, because both depends on, it's one of those, it depends. In 2 years ago, we pointed it out and said, hey, we're kind of thin. I don't know, it was 8 years, 10 years out. And that's giving us concern and we're going to have to address it at some point. That's when the idea came up, well, let's move $200,000 over, which we did, and that helped. Doesn't mean something else doesn't come back and bite you, but right, we had to do something. I mean, and it was a question, you had to answer the question. It's taxpayer money. Are we using it in a good way for the taxpayer? Because the answer is, if we don't make it up some other way, we're going to make it up through appropriation. So you got really 2 choices: raise more money, revenue, or reduce your expenditures. And that means going back to the department heads and saying, all right, you're going to have to move that truck out or get a lesser truck, or, you're going to have to do something different to try and get there. Now, the other thing is, there's a risk inherent in this. How much risk do we take? Nothing's going to fall apart if we make those numbers and nothing happens. I mean, nothing's going to happen if we're short of the benchmark. It just says that at that point in time, we will expect to have less money in the capital reserve account than we had planned for, than our benchmark shows. And And the amount of contingency that we have available without help from the town, say through a surplus transfer, we just don't have as much for as big an emergency. Now, have we had any emergencies in my 12 years like that? No. We have, having a strong capital reserve account has allowed us to do some things like we're upgrading the excavator in 2027. We can do that because we got a pretty good balance in our account. And, we're trading that off against the expected improved services we're going to get. In hindsight, we did the front end loader that we thought had improved service available to the town that was not in the plan at all. We had a strong balance. We did a return on investment calculation and decided that, it's going to work. It's going to pay for itself. The front end, the little backhoe, we extended the life from, 10 to 15 years because we're not getting all that salt into the engine that we used to get. We should have more productivity from the staff because we're not handling stuff as much as we had to before. I think the bucket's twice as big, so loading fill into a dump truck is going to go twice as fast. So there was a whole lot of things going on there. But it's, back then we were doing 2.5% inflation. now we're doing 6%, and we're a little concerned that, yes, that's not going to make it. So,
what that's the average for inflation over the last 10 years. Take a guess.
In regards to the committee or the world? The last 10 years, I would say it's probably been down 2.5 or less. Now, up until the pandemic, we were running around 1.5 to 2.5. We ran at 2.5 here all the way up until last year, I think it was. And then it was clear that we were getting ourselves in a hole.
I'm going someplace.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm not trying to be optimistic. I look at a 20-year plan, and obviously, with every year further out you go, the potential accuracy drops.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just can't see out that.
Right.
And time, by the same token, time, 6% over year is understandable, but the odds that it will remain at 6% year over year is very, very low.
Right.
And so I guess the only place that I'm going with this is that I can see why a 20-year plan would be requested. It does give you a kind of big picture of where you're going. The question I would ask is, how far out do you want to really look with precision, or how far out do you expect to have real precision?
That's a really good question. I mean, because you're spot on. Because we can spend all night trying to get the 10th and 11th and 12th year correct, but there's going to be so many things that are
here and then,
right.
That I'm not sure that you want to go down that road. Or I'm not sure that it would be productive going down.
Right. It's like, I mean, if you can see the way the plan's set up, the first 5 years are really the most important because
you got the best handle.
Right. Then after that, it becomes, we're making our best shot at it.
Yeah.
And now we're having a discussion, we're worried about something out in the 10th year. So if we go back, it's Therese, if you slide over a little bit to the right. And can you move that picture of the meeting up a little bit? There we go. So you can see, we're really right now, and if we roll back that year 5 change, we're really talking about 11, 12, and 13. So That's after the second 5 years of precision. So you're right, it's getting less precise. Many of the assumptions that we have in this plan will be different, maybe much different by the time we get out there. We have 10 years to watch it and fix it.
And you're looking at it on a yearly basis.
Right, and one of the things, and I think one of the beauties of how we do this plan is that we essentially start over each year.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're carrying forward our mistakes. We go back and all the assumptions are redone. All of the replacement costs are redone by the department heads. So, you know, we have all of that one.
But you're starting over, however, but you're starting over with more and more cumulative information.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so we're essentially getting wiser as we go, particularly about the next 5 years. So that's always being updated. So Teresa, roll that year 5 back, and we'll put that into the context of what Kyler's bringing up, which I think is great question. So that was what, 193? I think it's 193. And then what happens is once we agree, because we've passed on our appropriation request, we'll see what happens to that. We agree, all right, we got a plan that works. We will get back, did we accept your appropriation or not? And if it gets voted on, then we set what is then the gold copy. The gold copy, there are no more changes ever to that plan. It's gold. Then, and that will happen probably sometime in May or June. And then in September, we'll start from that gold copy and we'll make a new local copy. And the local copy keeps evolving through the processes of this committee until we make the next gold copy the following spring.
So by gold copy, you mean the final recommendation.
Right. Right. And in this case, since this is the first time we handed in a request for appropriation and said to the budget committee, our plan's broken, so we're going to work on fixing it. But we're not changing that request. So everything we're doing in fixing it starts with that request as a given, and we'll see if the town approves it. So we will, as far as I'm concerned, we don't have to submit this anyplace else other than find out whether that appropriation was approved by the budget committee and the select board, and we'll make the gold copy. And then we're done on this plan. We start the next plan in September. So going back to what you're saying, which I think is great discussion, is this is where we were. This gets us our 6% increase through the smoothing. Shows us in the 10, 11, 12 that we got some issues with meeting our benchmark. Doesn't mean we have to fix them now, but it just means that, like you were saying, that's out in the future. We've got time to work on it. Is it so bad that we need to do something today to get it a little bit closer or to fix it entirely? Or do we think we have time in terms of years, time in terms of the economy to straighten itself out and this inflation to come back more reasonable?
I'm sorry, remind me again, what do you like?
We said 299 was the capital reserve. Now, we haven't voted on that, so that's changeable too. Yeah, I mean, it's better than a dump truck, right? Right, yeah. Right. Yep. Yep.
You said 290.
Well, 299 is the benchmark. That's what we started with over, and then it grows by inflation. So by year 10, that benchmark is 505 and we're only hitting 412. So by bumping it up, I mean, we're quite a bit ahead of where the plan is. If we had left the plan alone, we'd only be at, move the cursor a little bit, Teresa. Yes, thank you. So it's gone from 443 to 505 because we changed the benchmark. And so we're trying to hit a higher target there. So that, that then goes back to what you were saying before in terms of time, in terms of assumptions changing over time. It's a target 10 years in the future. How meaningful is it as compared to a target for next year? It's not anywhere near as meaningful. So, I mean, the answer could be, we're good. Or the answer is, we need some more deep thought on this. That's what. So, are you good? I mean, yeah, yeah, I agree that.
It's too far out.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay, so, all right, so, right, I mean, if everybody's kind of comfortable where we are, then there's really nothing else to discuss. Let's figure out what we need to vote on. We would have to vote on changing the benchmark from 262 to 299. We would have to changing years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we would have to vote on changing the, what do we call that? The automatic calculation of appropriation if it calculates to a negative. So those are the votes we'd have to do to put this into the plan. Yeah, we'll go through. That was just kind of walking through. And that gives us a plan that works, a plan that we want to watch out 10 years. We're going to slide all the way to the right, Teresa. Okay, there's nothing out there that throws concern, some caution in year 18, but that's even further out than what we're talking about in terms of the benchmark. You can see the two colors on line 14 in the appropriation or the pink color. Year 17 and 18, that's the color that says, all right, the machine has made an assumption for us because we've allowed it to make that assumption. And if you remember, that was getting rid of those negative appropriations because we had no smoothing out in those years. So this just kind of visually makes it easier to read when you look at the chart and you explain it to anybody that it's not going to go to 0 in year 17. It'll be something more than 0. And this makes that assumption for us. Okay, so we're not having any big holes out there that we are going to be surprised at come September when we start a new plan. Okay. Certainly, John.
So whether policy we should select policy money under fund asking for capital reserve that create longevity to have it your process, or is there a better way to get money? We looked at budgeting pretty carefully. Hard to find. Get closer to get our appropriation closer to what surplus that we are. Can't see with our cover. Sort of been a policy during my
too much surplus. You don't want to reckless and mess up your plan. Without really any notice, just looking, we're actually guessing what our unlisted fund balance. The vision is, we're not sure, and we never had this conversation going on deleterious to the process. No, that's what we're thinking. We just don't know how to do it in a way that we can anticipate.
Well, I think,
You understand?
I know exactly what you're talking.
Mhm.
How do you know your name? Island. Island.
can we, just for discussion, use a number of, say, 200,000?
What are we giving the shoot you bid?
I mean, in the current fiscal,
This next fiscal budget.
that's, I didn't know we were doing any.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Anticipating, and forgive me, I'm not sure if it's 250. In the town meeting warrant is a part that. Let's just stay put.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too much not turned on.
Yeah. So we're passing through $250 from surplus, we call it undesignated fund, to the capital. And we can never tell you, well, we're gonna do it until we've done.
Let's use for discussion.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I said one.
No,
All right, what do I need to do?
let's keep going.
I don't want to stop you. You're on a roll.
No, well, let's add to the roll. So Teresa, on line 21, in the what if value. So remember everything we were just saying, because the what if's going to change. Let's assume that the town moves $250,000 into the capital reserve account. What happens? Slide over to the right. So we got rid of the problem in year 10. The problem in year 11 is a lot less, and in year 12, I think it went away. So the concerns that we were just talking about, all else being equal with our assumptions, go away with that cash infusion into the capital reserve account.
So if that cash infusion were a annual process, then we can, would that confuse the spreadsheet? Would that, it can be no promises, I'm just trying to think down the road, would that make a difference?
I think where it would make a difference and where my next question to you was, but if you were say, we're gonna provide $250,000 each year, then I would say the committee needs to go back and look at their appropriation request. That's got to come down because we're gonna be, if we keep this approach, we're way overfunded.
So for just creating the undesignated fund balance, which is too much of taxpayer money, transferring the similar surplus to your.
Right. But what you're saying is we're going to take tax dollars already paid and we're going to use it to reduce new tax dollars needed. So that's good for the taxpayer. Because my next question was going to be, you were, I don't know if you were here for all of the discussion, but as we get out, the problem we're addressing is 10 years from now. And we certainly want to make sure that we're on the right path to take care of that. So if the other thing we could do is $250,000, reduce the appropriate, the anticipated appropriations in years 2 through 5. And I mean, we could take it all the way back and say, we'll have the same problem, but we'll reduce the appropriations by that much. So 250,000 over 5 years,
So my,
which is what we did.
I-
And we got in trouble because inflation bit us.
so my question is it more appropriate for the select board to do it this process? Or should we continue to keep that money and then use it for an anticipated fire? I mean, so there, that sort of the quagmire of keeping taxpayer money, you know, in reserve, sort of plagues the select board. We don't want it, but is it more prudent to distribute it in the capital projects? Or
Well, you do want a balance, don't you? I mean,
we have a state mandated balance. We always maintain very safe 3-month level. That's always guaranteed. We're just, luckily, I mean, it's a good problem to have, except for it's a problem I'm uncomfortable with. We're not a bank. Shouldn't be a bank. So anyway, I just want to feel you guys out.
Well, one of the dilemmas you would have, if we use that to reduce the annual appropriation. If you use it a lot, let's say you could say $250,000, your appropriation goes to 0. Okay. What happens to the next year's budget? You got to bring it all the way back.
We wouldn't want to do that.
Right. You could shave it and say, all right, we'll do X thousands of dollars a year for the next 4 years. And
Well, could we do it? Let's just continue. I'm sorry I interrupted.
no,
I have a limited brain capacity. So if we kept the appropriations at that level and were infusing $200,000 yearly with the goal of spreading years 10 and 15 smoother and not reducing your appropriation, bringing a very transparent commitment to the taxpayer, and this is what we're doing. We have to be really transparent, saying, this is truly a 20-year capital reserve fund. We are trying to, at this time when we're lucky enough to have surplus, trying to transfer it to the capital. It's a philosophical question we have to address soon, because we're gonna get in trouble. It'll be
Right.
the this will be the
Third year.
we've done.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, having gotten burned by trying to reduce the appropriation too much and then having an unknown like inflation jump up and kind of make us reverse course, that was not comfortable or is not comfortable. We might find a way to do a little of each, is to say, all right, we can reduce the appropriation over the next 5 years by this much, and the rest we'll put towards our 10-year problem to make sure we aren't as thin when we get there, and give us more flexibility as we work out that problem over time. And then you raised the question of, we know we have a major project coming in town, the biggest ever. We don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, that could be 3 years away. It unfortunately could be longer. So then if you put that money into an account special for that, then it's taxpayer money that's not helping, doesn't help the taxpayer until that project comes to fruition. So maybe thinking that, a dollar in a taxpayer's pocket now is always better than one in the future. Maybe it's better to find a way to help do something good for the taxpayer sooner. So
my question would be, does this committee feel that the transfer to this fund is let's just say 5 years out, I would anticipate, you know, on my knees with my hands full of the eyes of the Lord, that in 5 years, we're gonna build a fire station. That's 5 years.
Right.
At 2%.
I mean, I think as a committee, we would always accept more funds in to bring that appropriation down. I think the question that we would have to spend some time on is if we get $250,000, how will we apply it to the plan? Will it be reducing our early year appropriation and kind of passing that benefit back to the taxpayer then? Or are we gonna wait and fix our 10-year problem with it? That again is taxpayer money waiting a long time to give you a benefit. That seems like too long a time. So, but that's something I think all of us would have to,
That's a conversation. I just wanted to use that conversation to your committee, just see me talk.
right? Because that's something, you know, if we get that money voted at town hall, it's gonna be part of the planning process right away is to say, all right, now we've got something that was not in our plan. How do we best use it for the taxpayer?
So just to be transparent, our priority has always been, let's support, well, 3 years, let's support capital projects. And then we look at our surplus. So we're also a warrant item using $300,000 to reduce taxation directly. So just go into. So there's always an intent to use that surplus. Just because of the way the budgeting cycle works, we don't have those figures. We really need.
Well, and I'll just say this, as a taxpayer, I think the select board has done a terrific job in keeping the tax rate stable over the last 5 years. When well, I haven't seen the results, so I can say it right now. But I mean, I think it's incredible how stable we have been, given the economic pressures that have gone on through the pandemic. And you know that bubble's gonna burst, and from the little bit I've seen in the budget presentations, I would be afraid it's this year.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. I just wanted to add that to your narrative. I know you talked about a lot of things. It would be if I get elected again, it would be my intent to include up to $250,000 per year surplus. I'm only 1 of 3. Usually that means good consensus.
I mean, that would definitely change our thinking as we plan, is to know that there's another source of revenue. I mean, we are going to submit to the select board a new committee charge. One of the things in that committee charge is trying to look at more sources of revenue, like impact fees. We don't look at that now. Could impact fees be a source of revenue for the things that we look at? We're also going to be talking tonight, if we don't run out of time, about expanding the list, because we've seen things happening in town being paid for by grant money, all this stuff. Well, eventually that ends its useful life. And you're gonna need more money to replace that, and there may not be a grant. The furnace in this building, is that a capital asset that should be separated from the rest of the building? Yeah, so there's several things coming in. If we build a firehouse, there's gonna be several things there. We're not gonna agree to everything that has come up, but I think we'll agree to some things.
And our TIF fund.
Well, that's another source of revenue that we think we should have access to.
Well, I look forward to the adjustment.
Right, so I have been busy on Monday night, so I have not submitted it. And that's ending soon. I know you have. So my conflict will be ending after another week, and then I'll be available if I need to come in and talk about it.
Sorry to take up your time. I've been needing to come.
Okay. So my last question. I'm thinking we should not put this in our plan right now. That we should, a meeting, right? So that's coming to us. we should not plan for it because it's June 17th, I think.
So I would wait till you submitted your road plan.
Yeah, when,
Because they need.
would you take that back to zero?
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
So just make sure we have the issues that we talked about in the future years. Yep, they're back.
11, 12,
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yes, it does.
I mean, I still think we're fine. Like we're still out to year 10. That it doesn't change anything for years 1 through 9.
And we happen to have information that we didn't have a half hour ago that could make it easier to deal with our future problem.
It makes me more comfortable with the 193 in year 5
Yeah.
right now.
Okay.
That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through our votes. Shall we start? The first thing would be to increase the capital reserve benchmark from 262,000 to 299,000.
We'll make a motion.
Yep. All those, any discussion? Oh, all those in favor? Can you just go ahead and make the motions on years 2, 3, 4, and 5, because I can't read the numbers from here.
Something could tell me what did you write them down? Oh, so okay.
Just make the motion.
So I will make a motion to, for the year 2, 3, 4, and 5 smoothing to increase by the inflation amount of 6%.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Say that again.
Yeah,
I got it right.
do it this way. Make the motion to increase year 2 from 2. We'll vote on that.
Okay.
Year 3 from 2,
Okay.
because that's the way I'm gonna put it in the
So all
plan,
separate.
all separate.
So
And
I will make a motion to increase the year 2 smoothing by 6%
from,
from year 1,
you have it from what's,
from the number.
Yeah, from-
155.
from 150, what?
6% from.
Right, it's from year 1 is 155.
152.
Oh, okay.
To
All right. So
164.
I will make a motion to increase the year 2 smoothing from 152 to 164,000.
164 from 152. We repeat that. The motion is to increase year 2 smoothing to 164 from 150.
Yes.
And do we have a second? All in favor?
All right. I will make a motion to increase the year 3 smoothing from 156,000 to 174,000.
166.
156
156.
to 174. That's the motion.
All in favor?
All right, I will make a motion to increase the year 4 smoothing from 160,000 to 185,000.
Okay, sorry, repeat that. From
160 to 185.
Favor?
That's one for this. Year 5 smoothing, I make a motion to increase that to 193,000 from 164.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. All right, what's next?
That was your
That
5?
was your 5.
Okay, so the next one, go over to the appropriations tab. I want to see what we actually call that. Maybe change it there.
Over here.
A little bit more. Motion wants to be to change the variable smooth as percent of prior year from 0 to 100%. Motion to change the variable. Smooth as a percent prior year. Zero. Make a motion.
Tyler's no. Yeah, you make the motion. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Make a motion to change variable, smooth as a percentage of prior year from 0% to 100%.
I will second.
All in favor? Okay. Right, yeah,
Thank God I didn't have to say all that.
right, okay. We are not gonna have time to look at capital versus operating budget. So we'll table that until the next meeting. For the minutes, Kyler, would you just note that Select Board Member John Morris visited the committee and discussed the possibility of a transfer of funds from surplus to capital reserve?
Undesignated.
Right.
Undesignated funds.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's one thing I forgot to do at the beginning of the meeting. That was the,
Minutes.
yes.
No.
I got so excited that Kyler was gonna do the minutes this time. Right. So the minutes from the last meeting, Jan Peter did get them out to everybody. Is there a motion to accept those? All those in favor? All right, okay, so that passes. Great, thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing else to come before the committee, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Okay,